Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Business Professor Show. J. Mance Gordon here. I'm your host. What I want to talk to you about today is the topic of lawyers or legal services in startup ventures. Now, this is a touchy topic for many. I've read on numerous forums over the years various opinions about the value and utility of legal services and the cost of those legal services for startup ventures. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So to start with, just as a little background, what exactly am I talking about in terms of legal services? Well, there's obviously the startup phase where you're organizing your venture, and whether that's taking you from just being founders under a partnership agreement to where you're perhaps operating as an LLC before you seek outside capital or reorganize as a Delaware corporation with preferred shares and all of that nature. Well, in actually doing that, normally you go through an attorney to make sure you don't miss any procedural steps. Well, okay, there's value in that because, and that's actually not that expensive to do in terms of cost of legal services because it's very prepackaged and you just want to make sure you've taken the legal steps necessary. The next question would be the value that comes in terms of reviewing the actions that you plan to take. Now, as a lawyer, I can attest, lawyers are trained to look for what can go wrong. And I can say that they have a disposition towards avoiding risk or minimizing it, which means they're not often at times a good fit for entrepreneurial ventures. Because by their very nature, entrepreneurial ventures have to take risks. That is, they have to pursue the unknown. And they oftentimes have to do it at a rapid pace. So they can't shore up every potential risk that's there. So they just have to deal with it. Now, so which begs the question, if a lawyer is going to come in and just identify all the risk and advise you one way or the other as to how much risk is present and what the potential consequences of a course of action can be, and they're going to do so at a pretty high cost, and necessarily just by virtue of the amount of time in a day that they have to offer their services and the years of work and effort and everything else that comes into providing those services just to make a $200,000 a year salary, all of a sudden the hourly rates that you have to charge are $500 or more for a sole practitioner who does this type of thing. And I can explain that math in other videos, but that's the reality. You're going to experience very high legal costs for these services that you receive from attorneys. So is it worth it? Well, I can say strategically in certain scenarios, if it's going to potentially put you at regulatory risk that the government's going to come in and shut down your business, such as if you're in an industry that deals with financial regulation, that is the Securities and Exchange Commission, FINRA on banking transactions, things of that nature. The regulatory framework is dense and you can easily misstep, so the value of legal guidance is, one, very necessary and also very expensive. But the necessity of it, if you're actually going to pursue the venture, then you need to pay for it. Now, if you're in a different type of venture where you have the routine potential pitfalls of someone getting injured or there being potential liability in this regard, contractually or for intellectual property matters or something of that nature, then again, it may be worth it to, seek preliminary advice just so you're aware, but to minimize legal costs and not actually have a regular attorney that's providing these fees. And I would say most ventures do not. They don't bring on an attorney until they reach the stage of, okay, they're going to get outside investment and they need to conduct due diligence and they need deal documents or they need to make certain that a contract really has locked up all the rights and provisions that they need. So they hire an attorney for that reason. And then all of a sudden the company gets very big and these transactions are routine in nature. And rather than paying these high hourly rates to outside counsel, it's cheaper to have an in-house legal counsel that can do a lot of this document review, that can do a lot of the contract drafting for you at a stated salary and perhaps some equity interest in the company rather than as a service provider that you hire. So I would say it depends largely on the stage of the venture as well. And increasingly, the information that attorneys can provide is becoming more and more available. Now, there is one difficulty there, and that's that whole value of education thing. Attorneys spend a lot of years not just learning what the law is, but they learn how to apply the law and the frameworks for examining situations to determine whether potential liability can result. So even if you know the state of the law, if you're not well versed in applying the law to given situations and looking for scenarios that could come up, then you as the entrepreneur might not be as effective. So even the prevalence of technology and the availability of legal explanations and things of that nature will not likely eliminate the need for lawyers in these scenarios just by virtue of the risk associated versus how much effort it takes to actually understand and apply what you have. The same goes for coding, right? There's an evolution in coding now that's become easier and easier and easier to manufacture the code for applications or software development or whatever. But knowing how to use that code, still, there's a big step between just generating the code and actually using it the way a programmer would. And the same thing goes for law. So technology has not obviated the lawyer's role yet. So with that being said, back to the original question, the legal services that you receive throughout the early stages of a startup venture, are they worth it? Well, at certain stages, yes, but you'll just have to examine your venture and say, what is the potential risk that I see there? It's not a highly regulated industry. There's no huge risk of physical liability or danger. I don't have personal assets that I'm trying to keep separate or protect in any way from potential liability in what I'm doing. So again, all of those factors will come into play as to whether the services of the attorney are worth it, because every dollar that you pay that high-cost legal counsel is money that you cannot put into growing your venture. And so there you go. These are the points for consideration in this topic. If you have an opinion on the matter, please jump in. Love to have this conversation started in a thread, and I will definitely comment on it if you start the conversation. So with that being said, hope to see you around the community sometime soon. Till then, take care. Hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the content, and please pardon the interruption. I just want to take a moment to remind you that this is just a small sample of the various resources we have in our academy at thebusinessprofessor.com. We have long-form book summaries, business courses, business and legal templates, a career TV channel, an AI-powered business encyclopedia, recent headlines, and lots of other benefits to explore as well. So please, I hope to see you as a member of the community sometime in the future.